Adam Carter stood on the 10th floor balcony of the Santa Monica Beach Resort, gripping a lukewarm cup of coffee that had long since lost its purpose. The morning sun was already merciless, turning the ocean below into a sheet of hammered silver. He wore a faded navy t-shirt that had seen better years, the collar stretched from too many washes, the fabric soft from years of being the only thing he owned that still felt like home. 6 years. That was how long the small folded note had lived in his wallet, tucked behind a photo of Lena at 3 years old, grinning with missing front teeth. He hadn't opened it in just as long. He didn't need to. The words were carved into him now. If you ever find someone good enough for both of you, don't turn her away. Lena deserves more love, and so do you. His late wife's handwriting, gentle looping letters that used to make him smile. Now they only made his chest ache in a quiet, familiar way, like pressing on a bruise you'd learned not to flinch from. Below him, the pool area shimmered with early morning life. Children shrieked and splashed. Parents hovered with sunscreen bottles and half-read paperbacks. And there near the shallow end was Lena, his 10-year-old miracle chasing 2 other kids in a chaotic game of tag. Her dark ponytail whipped behind her, laughter spilling out like it had never been rationed. For a moment watching her, Adam felt the knot in his throat loosen. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. A low-balance alert from the bank. Red numbers. The same message that had been arriving like clockwork for months. He silenced it and took another sip of cold coffee. That was when the beach ball hit him square in the forehead. It wasn't hard, just enough to startle him. The bright yellow sphere bounced once on the balcony railing before rolling to a stop at his feet. Adam blinked, looked up. No one in sight. He bent to pick it up, half smiling despite himself. "Uncle, throw the ball back, please!" A small, impatient voice floated up from below. Adam leaned over the railing and spotted a boy of maybe 9 standing on the pool deck with hands on hips, glaring up at him like Adam had personally stolen his toy. Adam chuckled under his breath, wound up, and tossed the ball. It sailed perfectly until a sudden gust of ocean wind caught it mid-flight. The ball veered left and landed with a soft thwack against the head of a woman just stepping out from the spa entrance. She froze. So did Adam. The boy Elliot Adam would later learn immediately wailed, "Mom, that man hit you with the ball?" The woman reached up, touched her temple, then looked straight up at Adam. She was maybe 35, blonde hair pulled into a loose knot, wearing a simple white linen cover-up over a swimsuit. Sunglasses perched on her head. Even from 10 floors up, he could see the faint surprise in her expression, and then slowly the corner of her mouth lifted. She laughed, not a polite, embarrassed laugh, a real one. Light, warm, the kind that made the air feel less heavy. Adam felt his face burn. I'm so sorry," he called down, voice cracking slightly. "The wind?" "It's fine," she called back, still smiling. "Better a beach ball than a high heel, trust me." Elliot crossed his arms. "You're supposed to apologize properly, mister." Adam raised both hands in surrender. "I'm very sorry, ma'am. And to you too, young sir." The woman ruffled her son's hair. "He's dramatic, comes by it honestly." She gave Adam one last amused glance, then guided Elliot back toward the pool. Adam exhaled, rubbed the back of his neck, and muttered to himself, "Great first impression, Carter. Real smooth." He didn't expect to see her again, but that afternoon, fate, or perhaps the resort's surprisingly small children's play area, had other plans. Lena had begged to go to the shaded playground near the beach promenade. Adam followed, carrying 2 bottles of water and the weight of another unpaid bill in his mind. He spotted them immediately. Elliot and Lena were already knee-deep in a game involving plastic shovels, a pile of sand, and what looked like an elaborate castle defense strategy. Lena was giving orders like a tiny general. Elliot was nodding seriously, clearly impressed, and sitting on a nearby bench, legs crossed, a book open in her lap, was the woman from the balcony. She looked up when Adam approached. He hesitated, then lifted a hand in a sheepish wave. She closed her book and smiled. "Ball-throwing champion," she said. "We meet again." Adam rubbed the back of his neck again, a nervous habit he'd never quite shaken. "Apparently I'm on a roll today." "I'm Ava," she said, extending her hand. "Ava Bennett. And the tiny prosecutor is my son Elliot, Adam Carter." He shook her hand, warm, firm, steady. "The tiny dictator over there is Lena, my daughter." Ava's eyes softened as she watched the 2 children. "They're fast friends." "Yeah," Adam said quietly. Lena doesn't make them easily. Neither do I. Ava tilted her head. Same. They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching the kids build and destroy and rebuild. The sun dipped lower. The ocean whispered against the shore. Eventually, Ava spoke again, voice softer. This is our first real vacation in a long time. Just the two of us. Adam nodded. Same here. Lena's been asking for the beach since she was 6. I finally saved enough. A pause. Then quietly, it's hard, isn't it? Trying to give them the world when you're barely holding your own together. Adam looked at her, really looked, and saw the same tired shadows under her eyes that he saw in the mirror every morning. Yeah, he said. It is. They didn't say much after that. They didn't need to. Later, as the sky turned the color of peach and lavender, Lena ran over sand, stuck to her knees, eyes bright. Daddy Elliot says we can build a bigger castle tomorrow. Can we please? Adam glanced at Ava. She smiled. We'll be here. Adam felt something small and unfamiliar stir in his chest. Hope, maybe. Or the first crack of light after 6 long years of shadow. That night, after Lena had fallen asleep with sand still in her hair, Adam stepped back onto the balcony. The ocean was dark now, the waves a steady heartbeat. He reached into his wallet, pulled out the folded note, and held it between his fingers without opening it. For the first time in 6 years, he didn't feel like the man who only knew how to survive. He felt like someone who might be ready to live again. The next morning, Adam woke to the sound of Lena groaning dramatically from the bathroom. Daddy? My face hurts when I blink. He stumbled in, took one look at his daughter's lobster-red cheeks, and immediately understood the crime he had committed. Sunscreen. He had forgotten sunscreen on a California beach. In the middle of summer, a quick glance in the mirror confirmed his own gilt shoulders, the color of ripe tomatoes, neck striped where his t-shirt had ridden up. They looked like matching barbecue specials. Great parenting, Carter, he muttered. By the time they shuffled into the resort's breakfast courtyard, both of them walking like they'd been assembled from spare parts, Ava and Elliot, were already at a table under the shade of a striped umbrella. Ava looked up from her fruit plate, took in the sight of them, and promptly choked on her orange juice. Oh my God, she managed between laughs. What happened to you two? Elliot leaned forward, eyes wide with scientific fascination. Are you guys cooked? Lena slumped into a chair, hiding her face behind a menu. We're grilled, Tombeau. Limited edition! Adam raised both hands in defeat. I forgot sunscreen. Sue me. Ava wiped tears from her eyes, still laughing. I have aloe vera in my room and mercy. Come on, sit down before you burst into flames. They spent the next 20 minutes being gently roasted verbally while actual butter melted on their croissants. Ava smeared cold yogurt on Lena's shoulders like she'd done it 1,000 times. Elliot kept offering them ice cubes for the pain. Lena, traitor that she was, declared Ava the nicest grown-up ever and asked if she could keep her. Adam watched it all with a strange tightness in his chest. It had been so long since anyone had taken care of them, even in small ways, that he'd forgotten what it felt like not to be the only adult holding the world together. The afternoon turned dangerous. They had decided against all reason to go back to the beach. Lena swore she felt better. Adam swore he would reapply sunscreen every 30 minutes like a responsible human. They lasted 45. By late afternoon, Lena was feverish, cheeks burning hotter than the sand. She lay on a beach towel under the umbrella, shivering despite the 90-degree heat, mumbling about ice cream melting too fast and Elliot stealing her shovel. Adam's heart dropped into his stomach. He scooped her up, wrapped her in a towel like a burrito, and carried her back to their room while she whimpered against his chest. Panic clawed at him. He hadn't felt this helpless since the night his wife died. He laid Lena on the bed, took her temperature 102.8, and nearly dropped the thermometer. Pharmacy run? Now. He grabbed his wallet, kissed Lena's forehead, told her he'd be right back, and sprinted out like the building was on fire. 20 minutes later, he returned, looking like a man who had looted a drugstore. Bags full of children's ibuprofen, electrolyte drinks, cooling patches, a digital thermometer, because clearly the first one was lying 3 kinds of rash cream, and because his brain had short-circuited canned chicken soup that proudly advertised itself as new and improved formula. He dumped everything on the table and froze. Ava was already there. She sat on the edge of Lena's bed, a damp cloth on the girl's forehead, speaking softly, singing something under her breath that made Lena's breathing slow and even out. Elliot hovered nearby, looking worried but trying to be brave. Ava looked up when Adam stumbled in. Her eyes flicked to the mountain of supplies and one corner of her mouth lifted. "You okay?" "No," he said hoarsely. "I'm the worst father on the planet." "You're a father who forgot sunscreen," once she said gently. "That makes you human. Not the worst." She took the bags from his shaking hands and started sorting through them with calm efficiency. "This one's good," she said, holding up the ibuprofen. "This one's basically sugar water. And this—" She held up the canned soup, read the label, and snorted. 90% water, 10% regret." Adam laughed. Actually laughed despite the terror still lodged in his throat. Ava made Lena take the medicine, changed the cloth on her forehead, and within an hour the fever began to break. Lena drifted into real sleep. One hand curled around Ava's fingers like it belonged there. Later, when the room was quiet and the only sound was the ocean outside, Adam and Ava sat on the balcony with 2 mugs of weak tea that was mostly hot water. Moonlight painted silver across the waves. Adam stared into his mug like it held answers. "I still feel like I'm failing her every day," he said quietly. 6 years, and I'm still waiting for the moment I get it right." Ava was silent for a long time. "Then I've been failing Elliot since the day he was born, according to my ex-husband's lawyers. Too ambitious, too independent, too... everything. They're trying to take him from me because I'm not the stable parent." She laughed bitter and soft. "I've never told anyone that." Adam looked at her, really looked. 2 single parents, 2 kids, 2 lives scraped raw by loss and judgment and the constant fear of not being enough. He reached out slowly, carefully, and covered her hand with his. She didn't pull away. "I don't know how to do this," he said. "Any of it." "Me neither," she whispered. They sat like that until the tea went cold, until the space between them stopped feeling like distance and started feeling like the beginning of something neither of them had dared to name. Inside, Lena sighed in her sleep and murmured, "Don't let Elliot eat all the chow." Ava smiled against Adam's shoulder. He closed his eyes and for the first time in 6 years didn't feel like the only one carrying the weight of the world. He felt held. And that was the most dangerous feeling of all. The flight back from Santa Monica felt shorter than it should have. Adam sat by the window, Lena asleep against his shoulder, her sunburn now faded to a soft pink. He stared at the clouds below, replaying every moment of the past week like a film he didn't want to end. Ava's laugh, the way she'd held Lena's hand when the fever broke, the quiet balcony nights when words weren't necessary. Beside him in row 14, Ava was doing the same, gazing out at nothing. Elliot curled in her lap with his headphones on. Their knees brushed once accidentally and neither moved away. They hadn't made promises. They hadn't needed to. What had started as a beach ball accident had quietly become something neither of them could walk away from. Then, reality arrived like a cold slap. Adam's phone buzzed the moment they landed in Seattle. An email from HR subject position elimination, effective immediately. He read it 3 times in the airport bathroom while Lena waited outside with her stuffed turtle. Due to post-merger restructuring, your role as senior project coordinator has been eliminated. Your final paycheck will be processed within 2 weeks. We thank you for your service. He leaned against the sink knuckles, white around the porcelain. The vacation had cost every spare dollar he had. Now he had no job, no buffer, and a daughter who still believed the world was mostly kind. He didn't tell Lena that night. He couldn't. Instead, he drove them home unpacked, made mac and cheese from a box, and pretended everything was fine. Ava texted him the next morning. HomeSafe Elliot keeps asking when Lena can come over again. Adam stared at the message for a long time before replying, "We're good. Just real life hit fast." She called him that evening. He answered on the second ring, sitting on the back steps of their small duplex while Lena did homework inside. "Hey," Ava said softly, "you sound like you're carrying the world again." He laughed once short and tired. "I got laid off. Email came while we were in the air, silence on her end. Then I'm sorry. Yeah, me too." Another pause. "I'm heading into court next week," she said. The final custody hearing. My ex is pushing hard, says I'm unstable, says my new situation is proof. Adam closed his eyes. New situation meaning me, meaning us, she corrected gently. He found out somehow, probably from a friend at the resort. He's using it like a weapon. Adam rubbed his face. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make things harder. You didn't, she said firmly. You made things real, and real is what I need right now. They talked for almost an hour about fear, about money, about how society looked at single parents like they were always one mistake away from failing, about how tired they both were of proving they were enough. When the call ended, Adam felt something shift inside him. Not hope, exactly, but the absence of despair. For the first time in years, he wasn't facing the storm completely alone. The next evening, Ava invited them over for dinner. Her apartment in Bellevue was small, but warm books. Everywhere, Elliot's drawings taped to the fridge, a half-dead fern she swore she was nursing back to life. Lena and Elliot disappeared into the living room with a board game. Adam helped Ava chop vegetables in the kitchen. She slid him a glass of red wine. To surviving. He clinked his glass against hers. To maybe more than surviving. Dinner was loud and messy and perfect. Elliot told terrible jokes. Lena laughed so hard she snorted milk. Ava kept catching Adam's eye across the table, small smiles that felt like secrets. After the kids went to bed, Elliot in his room, Lena on the couch with a blanket, Ava and Adam stepped onto the tiny balcony overlooking the city lights. The wind was cool. The sky was clear. Ava leaned against the railing. I'm scared, she admitted quietly. The judge might decide I'm not fit, that Elliot would be better with his father who has the big house, the new wife, the perfect Instagram life. Adam stepped closer. He won't. You don't know that. I know you, he said simply. I know how you love him. I see it every time you look at him. That's what matters. She turned to face him. Tears shimmered in her eyes but didn't fall. I don't want to lose him, she whispered. You won't, Adam said. And then, because the words felt right, and you won't lose me either, not if you don't want to. Ava searched his face, then she stepped forward, slid her arms around his waist, and rested her forehead against his chest. He held her. They stayed like that for a long time. When she finally looked up, her voice was barely above a breath. Why does this feel like the scariest and safest thing at the same time? Because it's real, he said. She rose on her toes and kissed him. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, steady. The kind of kiss that said, I'm here, I'm staying. When they pulled apart, Ava smiled through tears. We're going to be okay, aren't we? Adam brushed a strand of hair from her face. Yeah, we are. Inside, Lena stirred on the couch, mumbling something about castles and ice cream. Elliot's soft snores drifted from down the hall. And for the first time in 6 years, Adam didn't feel like he was running out of time. He felt like he was finally running towards something. The first few weeks after they returned from Santa Monica felt like walking on borrowed time. Adam and Ava didn't rush anything. They called each other every night after the kids were asleep. They met for coffee on Saturday mornings while Lena and Elliot played at the park. They texted memes at 2 a.m. when neither could sleep. Small, careful steps. Like people learning how to trust the ground beneath them again. But reality doesn't wait for careful steps. It kicks the door down. Adam's final paycheck came and went. The severance was barely enough to cover rent and groceries for a month. He started driving for rideshare after Lena went to bed. Midnight shifts, quiet streets, passengers who barely looked up from their phones. He came home smelling like coffee and car freshener, muscles, aching eyes, burning. Ava sold designer handbags she'd bought in another life piece by piece on online marketplaces. She took freelance consulting gigs that paid irregularly. She smiled through it all, but Adam saw the worry lines deepening around her eyes. They still made it work. They traded babysitting duties so the other could work. They cooked big pots of chili and stretched them for days. They laughed about how romantic date night had become folding laundry while the kids slept sharing a single glass of cheap wine. Then came the custody hearing. Ava's ex-husband arrived at the courthouse like he owned the building. Tailored suit, perfect hair, new wife on his arm, younger, polished, the kind of woman who looked like she'd never had a bad day in her life. He spoke calmly to the judge about stability and financial security. He mentioned Ava's recent relationship with an unemployed man as evidence of poor judgment. Adam sat in the back row, fists clenched so hard his nails left crescents in his palms. When it was Ava's turn, she stood straight, voice steady, even though her hands trembled at her sides. "I've been Elliot's mother every single day," she said. Through fevers, through nightmares, through the nights he cried for his father, and I had to explain why he wasn't coming home. I've never missed a school event, a doctor's appointment, or a bedtime story. My ex-husband has missed most of them. He has the money, yes. But money doesn't read bedtime stories. It doesn't hold a child when they're scared. It doesn't love them when they're difficult. She paused, looked straight at the judge. I may not have the biggest house right now. I may be rebuilding. But I have shown up. Every day. And I will keep showing up. The judge asked a few more questions. Ava answered each one honestly without apology. When the hearing ended, the judge reserved judgment for 2 weeks. Ava walked out pale but composed. Adam met her in the hallway, pulled her into his arms without a word. "You were incredible," he whispered. "I was terrified," she whispered back. They went home together. That night after the kids were asleep, Ava cried quietly against his shoulder. Not loud sobs, just the soft, exhausted release of someone who had carried too much for too long. Adam held her until she fell asleep. The next blow came quietly. One evening, while Adam was making dinner, Lena and Elliot got into a fight in the living room. It started over a board game, escalated quickly. "I don't need a new mom," Lena shouted, tears streaming down her face. "My mom is gone, and you can't just replace her." Elliot's face went red. "I don't want a new dad either. My dad's coming back, and he's going to take me away from all this." The words hung in the air like smoke. Ava froze in the kitchen doorway. Adam set down the wooden spoon so hard it cracked against the counter. The children stared at each other, then at the adults, horrified by what they'd said. Lena ran to her room and slammed the door. Elliot burst into tears and hid behind the couch. Adam and Ava looked at each other, stunned. They spent the next hour coaxing the kids out. Lena curled up on Adam's lap, sobbing apologies. Elliot let Ava hold him while he hiccuped through explanations about missing his dad, even though his dad barely called. When the house was finally quiet again, Adam and Ava sat on the couch, exhausted. "I didn't think it would hurt them this much," Ava said softly. "They're scared," Adam replied. "They're afraid if they love us together, it means forgetting what came before." Ava nodded. "I don't want them to forget. I just want them to know they can have more." Adam reached into the side table drawer and pulled out the small, worn envelope he'd carried for 6 years. He handed it to Ava. She opened it carefully. The handwriting was soft, familiar. A note from a woman, long gone. Ava read it slowly. Tears slipped down her cheeks. "She wanted this for you," Ava whispered. "For both of you." Adam swallowed hard. "She wanted us to be happy, even after she was gone." Ava folded the note and pressed it back into his hand. "We're not replacing anyone. We're adding. We're making room." Adam pulled her close. "Then let's keep making room." They sat like that until the streetlights came on outside. No grand declarations, no rushing, just the quiet promise to keep trying, to keep showing up. Even when it hurt, even when the children were angry, even when the world told them they weren't enough, because maybe they were exactly enough for each other. 1 year later, the small house at the end of Maple Lane in Portland smelled like fresh coffee cinnamon and the faint promise of rain. Adam stood at the stove in a ridiculous apron Ava had bought him as a joke, bright red with white letters that read, "World's Okayest Dad." Flour dusted his forearms. He was attempting pancakes for the 3rd time that morning, and the first batch had already surrendered to the trash can. Ava leaned against the doorway, one hand resting on the gentle swell of her belly, the other holding a mug of decaf. She was 6 months along now, glowing in a way that made Adam's chest ache every time he looked at her. "You know eggs go in after the milk, right?" she said, amused. "I'm a carpenter, not a Michelin chef," he grumbled, but the corners of his mouth lifted. "Besides, these are artistic." In the living room, Lena, now 11, sat cross-legged on the rug with a book open on her lap. Elliot, 10 and still full of opinions, was building a Lego tower that threatened to topple at any second. The two of them bickered constantly, but the kind of bickering that ended in laughter and shared secrets. They had fought over the baby's name for weeks until they reached a compromise: Hope. Lena chose the word. Elliot chose the meaning. Hope is strong, he'd declared. Like us? Adam flipped a pancake, miraculously golden this time, and glanced at the framed photo on the fridge. It had been taken 6 months ago, right after Hope's arrival. Ava in the hospital bed, exhausted and radiant, holding their newborn daughter. Adam beside her, eyes red from crying he still swore was allergies. Lena and Elliot squeezed in on either side, grinning like they'd just won the lottery. Across the bottom, in Elliot's careful handwriting, "Our team just got stronger. Love wins." Hope Carter Bennett had come into the world on a rainy October afternoon in a small delivery room with no fanfare, just the 4 people who already loved her. Lena had insisted on cutting the cord, her hands shaking with excitement. Elliot had sung her a lullaby off-key and perfect. Adam had nearly passed out when the doctor said, "You can look now," but he'd looked anyway, and the sight of his daughter's tiny face had undone him all over again. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, Adam had slipped out to the back porch with an envelope he'd kept hidden for years. He sat on the steps, the same steps where he and Ava had talked until dawn so many times now, and opened the letter he'd never sent. "Dear Sarah, I did it. I let someone in. Her name is Ava. She's kind and brave, and she loves Lena like she's her own. She's carrying our second child, Hope. Yeah, we named her that, because that's what you taught me to keep. Hope. You were right. I didn't think I'd ever deserve this again. But Ava makes me believe I do. And Lena, God, she's so happy. She calls Ava Mom Ava now. It doesn't replace you, it just makes the room bigger. Thank you for loving us enough to let us go on without you. Thank you for the note. Thank you for everything. I miss you every day. But I'm happy. Really happy." He folded the letter, kissed it once, and tucked it back into the wooden box he kept in the attic alongside wedding photos. Lena's first drawings and the hospital bracelet from the day Hope was born. Not to forget. To remember that love didn't end when Sarah left. It grew. Inside the house, Ava appeared at the sliding door wrapped in one of his old flannel shirts. "You okay?" she asked softly. He walked to her and pulled her close, her belly pressed gently against him. "More than okay," he murmured into her hair. "I'm home." She smiled against his chest. "We all are." Later, as the sun set behind the evergreens and the kids argued over who got the last pancake, Adam watched them from the kitchen doorway. Lena and Elliot. Ava and the baby they hadn't met yet. A family stitched together from broken pieces held by love that had learned how to bend without breaking. Someone had once asked him what kind of family they were. He'd smiled and said simply the kind that started with a beach ball to the head, a fever in the night, and 2 scared kids who didn't want to lose what they had. The kind that grew anyway. Because sometimes the best families aren't born, they're built. One quiet choice at a time. And in that small house on Maple Lane under the soft glow of the kitchen light, that's exactly what they were doing. Building, loving, winning, together.